Welcome to DJNTV and Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. Now introducing the one and only Ben Stowe.
Yeah, baby. Yeah. Go. Good evening and welcome to our Tuesday night show. Tonight, this is a rarity. And why is it a rarity? Because the stars have aligned and Ben is so psyched for tonight. There has to be ice cream at the end of the show, right, Ben?
There should be, actually.
There should be.
Hey, do we have any ice cream after the show? Hello?
Yeah,
no production assistant?
No, yeah, man, you got the same production assistant there as I have here.
I guess I'm on my own.
No
Sorry.
ice cream here either, is there? No.
Hey.
No. God.
Shoot.
But,
it's April Fool's.
It is. And so
my favorite Mr. T and the Ninja Turtles joke, which is, it's not our joke for the night. It should have been though, but it's April Fool's. Anyways.
I see.
I just got the official text from my production assistant, aka my wife, who said, "No, you're out of luck for ice cream." So,
man, there was that one time. Who would have known?
One time
we needed to,
we just had our anniversary too, and we had a nice night. I would have thought, but apparently not. So,
well, maybe next year.
Yeah, it's always next year.
Maybe next year.
Get ice cream on our anniversary. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, that doesn't sound like it's going to work.
Any marriage counselors watching our show?
Yeah, I'm sure that this is a big show for them to watch, and many times it's what not to do. They're like, hey,
I'll tell you what. I sure hope my text messages are not coming through on the screen, because the one she just sent me is definitely not family friendly. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Good stuff. All right, so let's get to tonight's sequence. We're going to start next with our joke of the week. Oh, there she is. Hi, Cheyenne. Okay, Ben, what do you have for us tonight?
Really scraping the bottom of the barrel for jokes here, and I already just sort of offhandedly mentioned my Mr. T and April Fool's joke. But anyway, so we'll go with this one. I've been holding this one back for a long time, but I guess I feel like it's time. How many DJs does it take to change a light bulb?
Oh boy. Do we need to put a preface of this one that hey, send letters to Cat at.
That's right. Yeah. Cat is the complaint department.
Exactly.
No.
I don't know. How many DJs does it take to change the light bulb?
Just one. They just hold on to the light bulb and the whole world revolves around them.
Okay. That one is actually really, really very funny.
Oh, I do that.
Cat at,
yeah.
Yeah, send your
KAT.
Yeah. That'd be great. All right. Let's get to our first question tonight. Okay, Ben, the first question tonight is actually from one of our viewers who was watching last week when we were talking about you really dug into the idea of figuring out your finances and having money set aside and dedicating money from your events to be able to purchase and upgrade as you need with the life expectancy of gear. If you guys missed the life expectancy show of your gear, check that out from last week's show. There was some good information there of how long can some of this stuff last, or should we expect it to last? Well, they wanted to know then, so if there was a way, and they wanted to do some upgrading this summer, that they wanted to be responsible with their finances and such, but wondering if there was a way that you could suggest that maybe they could do the upgrade without putting themselves into the 20% credit card debt that is way too common. Because for a lot of us, our busy time's coming up here, so we can pay for things, but not today.
Yeah, well, and I want to be perfectly clear about what I said last week, that what I said is the gear is a tool. The gear should make you money. That doesn't mean you necessarily have to have the money to buy the gear. That's great, of course. I mean, if you have the money in the bank, that's great. And that's the end game goal. But, what you're talking about, sometimes, growth is very expensive. And we have to acquire gear to make money if we don't have the money to acquire the gear. Chicken and the egg, right? Yep. So just to be clear, I didn't say don't buy gear that you don't have money for. I may have said don't buy gear you can't afford. And I think there's a difference there, because if the gear is going to make you money, then you can afford it. it's a tool. It's not a toy. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and even right there, let's just dig into that one just a little bit more, because there's some times where there's like it can make me money, but will it be able to give me a enough of a return? Because I would love to have that that level of sound system that you've got for your touring or a mini version of that, but I would never be able to.
You can come use mine anytime.
Yeah, exactly.
But you have to bring your own semi.
Yeah, exactly. But there would be no way that I could ever make a return with the type of events I do. So there's got to be a point where it makes sense and it's logical.
Well, and I think we even have those same conversations too, right? Because you can't own every piece of gear. And there's an industry term called cross renting, where we'll reach out to other production companies, hey, do you have a S6L 32D, that we can rent this weekend, or do you have, because everything is stupidly expensive in our level of where we're doing things. I had a chain motor that sucked in a cold link that somebody had dropped in the chain box. I think we rented it out to another company, cross rented. And anyway, it was $1,500 just for the chain. That didn't include the repair and the recertification and all that. So, it's just absurd when a chain costs $1,500, but that's just sort of how our side of the world works. So that calculus gets employed there. Like you said, there has to be an ROI. And even we are like, well, maybe we'll just rent that. And like for you, if you had one really big event where you're like, hey, Ben, I need a sound system like yours. Well, then we just partner up on that deal, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And I've done that with several other DJs in the Midwest and other production companies where, we partnered and brought our rig and they were able to still do the gig. And, but anyway, what we're talking about is, of course, buying gear when it makes sense. And if you're renting all the time, well, then you probably should buy it, right? So that's what it comes down to is doing that math and making sure that gear is going to make you money. Now, listen, I mean, I work with DJs all the time who are buying gear, I like praise basically every day. And some will be like, well, I need to pay for it in one event. Wow, that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, it'd be great.
If your client will pay you enough to pay for that gear in one gig, you've got it made. Because I'm thinking like 100 gigs to pay for mine. But again, there's a significantly different ROI there. But you have to do that math and what it is. And we used some scenarios last week where I talked about if you were doing 30 shows a year, if you're doing 10 shows a year, how much does that gear have to generate? How long will you own it? What's the amortization? Anyway, and your question today is, well, so I need this gear to go get these gigs, and I know I'm going to get the gigs and I'm going to pay for it, but I don't have the money, right? Well, we have you. We got your back. So let me do a little screen share because your friends at NLFX, we have your back. All right. You're seeing a black screen right now?
I am seeing a black screen. Yeah. And it's really riveting.
Good. I was hoping you were seeing
there's
a
mouse.
Screen.
There's a little, oh yeah, this is our favorite part of the show.
Let's see. I think
this is star watching in northern Minnesota at night on a cloudy night. Yay!
Let's see.
Northern Lights, where are you?
All right.
Oh,
so here we go. I think PowerPoint froze on me for a second. Sorry. So at NLFX, we have lots of financing options. And one that I'll talk about right now is interest free, but I'm going to give you another really dirty secret here. And we have our NLFX card through Synchrony Financial. It is 0% financing. And basically we can give you up to 48 months, 0% financing. And I say up to because we can also give you shorter financing and deeper discounts because we have to pay fees the longer the financing is. So the longer you finance it, it's like a credit card fee. Like, if you take a payment from a client, you pay a fee to the credit card, same deal.
Sure.
Except that when we do 48 months, that fee is much higher than if we do 12 months or 6 months. So this means that we can tailor this to you. So if you say, well, I can pay for it in 6 months, great. We can give you the deepest discount and still interest-free financing.
Nice.
Or if you're like, hey, listen, I need to work this out over 48 months, then we just, we can give you less of a discount, but you're still going to pay no more than you would see on our website. And this is almost every item qualifies for at least 24 and many times 48 months financing. So without getting into all the, the weeds of it here, bottom line, you can have your cake and eat it too here. You can have interest-free financing and you can get that gear now. Now that's not the only option we have. We have a few other options. Of course, we have a firm. We have PayPal has their, buy now, pay later. And then for larger purchases, we have our friends at Hampton Ridge, which I believe now this one, there is some interest on that. But these are larger. Hampton Ridge is very common for production companies. We have a lot of production companies that use Hampton Ridge because they're making these bigger purchases. And with a single page app, Hampton Ridge will do up to 350,000.
Oh, yeah, that's just about as much as I would be needing.
Perfect. We'll get you in touch with the boys there, and we'll get an app going.
Great.
But really, I guess the point is there's options, right?
Yeah.
We've got a lot of different options, ranging from interest-free and no credit check to, really commercial financing. And again, when you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on some of the things that our production customers buy, that's the right fit there, So whatever it is and wherever you're at, and the reason I wanted to say this is we're not like, take it or leave it. We really want to have that dialogue with you. What's going to make you most successful? What is going to help you make the most money? What makes the most sense, whether it's, amortizing that payment out over a longer period of time and preserving your cash flow, or whether it's taking the deepest discount, because you can pay it off in 6 or 12 months.
Yeah. Excellent. And if somebody would be interested in that, they can just give a call and you can get the ball rolling.
Yeah, super easy. You can actually go right on our website, nlfxpro.com/financing, and you can apply for the Synchrony card. It's instant approval. You can use it immediately. We can literally in the course of a conversation get you completely all set up. And of course, so is a firm and so is PayPal. Again, Hampton Ridge is a bit, for bigger things. But we just had, I think actually one of our viewers who runs a small production company down in Georgia just used Hampton Ridge for, around 15,000. So it doesn't have to be crazy. I know that's a lot of money. I'm not saying it's not, but I'm just saying it doesn't have to be hundreds of thousands either. I think anything 5,000 and up, those guys will do. So
nice. Very nice. It's great to have options like that. So
yeah, it is, especially when, sometimes people are wanting to use other resources that they have. And, the stock market's kind of up and down right now, maybe you don't want to tap any existing funds. This is a good way to just, again, spread out that cash flow, not use up cash. And again, I'm not saying anything different than what I said last week. This is not a license to go buy a bunch of toys that aren't going to make you money. I still want, we want you to be successful. There is nothing in it that benefits us for you to not have a successful business. So, and again, like I said last week, if your wife is telling you not to buy gear, then there's probably some internal discussions that need to happen. You need to have a more compelling reason why you need to buy that gear. And maybe you don't need to buy that gear. And I know I had people message me last week that said, you're out of your mind. Your company sells gear for a living and you're telling people not to do it. No, I told you not to do it irresponsibly.
There you go. There's a big difference.
Yeah.
Big difference for sure. Excellent. Let's jump to our next, which would be the photo of the week. All right, Ben, what do you have for this week's photo?
Well, you see, one of our viewers, apparently our show was just boring last week. So I don't know.
No, it was fun.
I thought it was a good show.
I mean, again, this is another exciting shot. Now, this was the one that Ben had around the campfire in northern Minnesota, looking for the northern lights on a cloudy night, and it was raining, so there was no campfire.
Let me just get to it.
Oh,
so
hello
one
there.
of our loyal viewers and a good friend of mine who texted me after the show many of these screenshots that he took. We apparently look great as superheroes.
Yeah,
or
I was going to say,
I don't know, maybe I look kind of like an AHA video or something. Maybe I don't know.
I do. Yeah, there is that.
But so I thought you really look good, John.
Yeah,
I was like, that's a strong jawline, and you look
kidding.
like a guy that I would trust. But
yeah, I mean, I probably have some secret lab somewhere. Kind of.
I have no doubt.
Yeah.
But there were more, and I just want to say, fun with filters, but there's limits, right? So never again. This never happens again. Never. All right. Like, this is not okay. This is, first of all, I have an ugly head. I can't go bald. I'll have to wear like a toupee or something because, well, I mean, just look at it. Anyway, Oh no, I don't know what you're laughing for, John. You were not exempt, so you went the other direction. You got hair in places
I
you don't need it.
don't
So,
think. Oh, look at the
uh,
eyebrows. They're so fantastic and,
it honestly kind of works for you a little bit, but
caterpillar like. Yeah.
Brian Krantz played John Young on TV. All right, so
Yeah. Oh, man.
I hope our viewers watching again tonight because he knows who he is.
Yeah.
Obviously, he sent me the pictures.
And he's had some fun with that. Yeah. My.
There were more, by the way. I didn't post them all. There were more. So,
Oh, well, I'm glad they took the time to show the love.
I am too.
Yeah,
But I thought, boy, I don't know. If this is, I don't know.
yeah,
I've had other friends tell me that we're really strong with like the 8 and 9-year-old demographic. I don't know, like they watch our kids, they make their kids watch our show so they fall asleep. So
oh, nice. That's great.
apparently they only sleep one night a week because that's the only time we're on.
Yeah, Tuesday. We finally get the kids to bed on time on Tuesdays. Yes. Come on, kids. We're going to watch Tuesday night with. Oh. I'm sure that's not what it is. Not what it is.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I know.
All right, let's come back here with our talk of the week. Here we go. All right, Ben. So, what is this week's good word?
It's kind of in keeping with the theme that we've had with the financial show the last week and this week, and sort of in just it's not really the financial aspect, but it's the planning aspect, and we're just going to call this playing the long game, because we've seen a 90-day slide now in consumer sentiment and consumer confidence. We're seeing Wall Street is a little bit shook. And, I was just talking to a friend of mine earlier today, and I said, I'm really happy that I'm, a nearly 50-year-old administrator, not a 20-year-old administrator, because as a much younger man in business, I would have been much more shook by all this.
Sure.
I'm a lot more patient now. I'm a lot less panicky now. And I certainly don't think there's any reason to panic right now. I mean, people are concerned and they're uncertain, but I don't think we're seeing any alarm bells for panic. So number one, I don't think there is any cause for panic. But number two, it reminds me of some of the real great opportunities when people did. And COVID is the most recent example in my mind where, we had competitors that laid off staff and they sold off gear. And when the market came back, and it came back strong, we were prepared to take on more tours and more shows and more customers. We didn't lay anybody off. We didn't sell off any gear. We didn't panic, bottom line. It came at significant expense, but playing the long game paid off.
Right.
We made a plan and we stuck to our plan. And I think that this comes down to any scenario. It doesn't matter if it's, a pandemic or, change in political climate or, these ebbs and flows. You and I have been around running businesses through 3 recessions and a pandemic now. Just don't get too shook. I was talking to one of our customers that is a manufacturing company. They manufacture home goods, doors, things like that. And they were talking about a new product line they're launching. And this is the long game. It's going to take years to launch this product line, but people are always going to need doors, and people are always going to need entertainment. People are always going to need DJs, and DJs are always going to need gear. And so the story goes, right? So have a plan, understand what you're going to be, who you're going to be, and stick to it and play the long game. And don't, there's one thing to react nimbly to market conditions, but there's another thing to really shift your core. And I think if you don't have an authentic core, that's what ultimately can hurt you in the long run. So there's the TED Talk. I guess we're not allowed to say TED, but just know who you are and know where you're going. And when everybody, Warren Buffett said it, be greedy when everybody else is fearful, and be fearful when everybody else is greedy. And I'll just say it a little bit different. When everybody else is panicking, that's the time to be hungry. That's the time to hammer down, just prepare your business to be successful. Put yourself in a place where it can be successful. Put yourself in front of the brides. Put yourself in front of the clients. Be prepared to take advantage of that business, and then do it.
And I think part of this is and you started this taking the emotion out of many of the decisions. And I think that's a part that obviously age has helped for us to understand that, but I don't think it can be overstated how important that is, because as a younger version, so many times we made emotional decisions as opposed to
all the
intelligent
time.
business decisions. So we all do it. It's
You
just,
know, here's something that not very many people know about me, because why would they? It's not really a relevant thing. But you remember the board game Risk?
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I play an online version of Risk, and the same thing really applies there. And at one point, out of like 5 million players in the world, I was ranked as high as number 4. So like number 4 in the world. It was a little bit of a fluke, but
Mm-hmm.
but consistently, I've been in the top 0.00 whatever percent of players. And one of the really key reasons, and then there's a great reason the game is called Risk, right? Everything you do exposes you to risk.
Mm-hmm.
And I take emotion completely out of it. And you'll see people who will, it's really it's a fascinating thing, because you're playing online against other human players around the world, but you can't talk to them and you can't see their face. You can't read their body language. So you have to kind of extrapolate from how they behave, how they react to certain things in the game, what their temperature is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you see
Yes.
people who very emotionally react to something, and you're like, all right, that guy's a hothead, or this guy's, you know and bottom line, if you play emotionally, you're going to get beat fast.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing applies to business. There's really, that's a great way of putting it, John, that
If you play emotionally, you're going to get beat fast.
take the emotion
Yeah.
out of it.
Yeah.
Don't react emotionally. Don't counterpunch so quick. Just have a plan and stick to it.
Mm-hmm. Great advice. Great advice there, Ben. All right, let's get to our last question of the night.
Also good.
Okay, so our final question of the night. Someone was talking about they've got a hiss coming through their speakers, and they were trying to figure it out, couldn't figure it out, and they're like, well, what are some of the common things that will give us a hiss in our speaker, and are there some kind of things they could do to remedy these, or make it so it's not as noticeable, I guess.
So I hear this from time to time from people, and I put together a few slides for this as well. So let's just get to them. So one thing that it could be, never a 0% chance, is there could be a snake in your speaker.
A snake?
There's actually a snake in there. Take a look. There's a snake.
Ew.
Yeah. So
how in the world did that get in there? Must be.
I don't know. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm just saying it's never a 0% chance. So that's all I'm saying. But
never taking a speaker apart again, ever.
So yeah, could be a hissy little snake in there. Probably not though. It's probably gain structure, and I think gain structure is one of those things that's really not that hard, but it seems to be hard for everybody. So we're going to just run through that a little bit, and we're going to come back to the exciting conclusion about a couple reasons that this could be happening and what to do to fix it.
Okay.
One right here, you can see that this is the input screen on a loudspeaker, and they've got it set for plus 10 dB. So we have 10 dB of gain applied to the signal coming in, and that's no, just no, I can't think of any scenario where this would happen, but basically what's happening here is we've turned up that sensitivity so much, we're amplifying everything that comes in, including noise.
Sure.
And so more on the noise in a second, but let's move on. So let's talk about the basic electrical structure of the system here. You can see we've got a microphone, and this is just kind of a standard dynamic cardioid microphone, Shure SM58. And every microphone's a little bit different, how many millivolts you get per Pascal. In this case, we're just going to generalize, and we're going to say you get 2 millivolts, so 2/1000ths of a volt for from that microphone. And down below, you can see we've got a DJ controller, or a CD player actually, and this could be either 1.2 volts in the plus 4 dBu standard, or it could be 0.32 volts in the minus 10 dBV standard. Note those are dBu and dBV, but we're not getting into that today. I took that slide out. I really wanted to, but I was like, nah, I better not. So we got to get this show done by 9 o'clock. So, but but what we can see is that there's a significant difference in voltage here, that, more than 1,000 times more voltage, coming out of the, +4 than the microphone, right? Or whatever, 500 times or 600 times. So we have what's called a preamp, and that's this little triangle here that brings our microphone up to line voltage, 1.2 volt. All right. I promise this is going to be important. And then this goes through our mixed position here, where we've got our these are our symbols for potentiometers, our faders, if you will. And then we've got another amplifier that takes our line voltage. So this is all a matter of voltage, right? It's the point I'm trying to make. So voltage, 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 and then up to, 75, 100 volts, whatever, for our loudspeaker. All right. Well, here's what's going on. So we want to have what's known as signal to noise ratio. And we want to have the best signal to noise ratio we can have, but we want to avoid clipping. And every electronic component has a noise floor, which we can see down at the bottom. I cleverly drew that in PowerPoint. That's pretty good picture of noise. Yeah.
And then I really like the way.
By the way, it's really hard to draw an audio wave in PowerPoint, but that's neither here nor there. And then we can see this red line, and that is the maximum amount of voltage that this device can produce, whether it's a mixer or a loudspeaker, amplifier, whatever, it doesn't matter. I mean, I shouldn't say loudspeaker, but any electronic device like an amplifier. And anything that goes above its max just gets clipped off, and thus it's clipping, right? And my white arrow here shows the ratio from noise to the audio signal. Now the noise, here's the big exciting reveal. Noise is the hiss. All right. Well, how does it get through like that? All right, stick with me. So we're going to talk about signal to noise ratio for a quick second. And here we can see if this microphone is 15 centimeters from somebody's face, and that gives me 75 dB of signal. And there's my noise is 50 dB. That gives me a signal to noise ratio of 25 dB. Okay. And if I move that microphone back, double the distance, 30 centimeters, lose 6 dB, inverse square law. We know all that. If you don't, watch the other shows. Now my signal to noise ratio is dropped to 19 because we have 69 dB of signal and still 50 dB of noise. So it's all about voltage. All right. I want my signal voltage to have a high ratio as compared to my noise voltage, signal to noise. Because if my signal is really low down with my noise and I amplify that, now I just amplified the noise as well.
Sure.
Okay. So punchline. Either the input sensitivity is turned up way too high on that loudspeaker and it's just amplifying the inherent noise floor of the loudspeaker or any noise that's coming through on that signal, or, and equally likely, a bunch of gains are turned up on their mixer or controller and they're just pumping out a ton of noise out that output. I've seen that so many times. You get called into a school or a place that's got an installed system and it's just hissy, noisy everywhere. I see it in audio consoles. I see it in DJ controllers. So, and just go back and check your gain structure. Almost guaranteed that's where that hiss is. And the quick giveaway to that is you always start at your input, adjust your gain there, then go to the next stage of gain, like a fader, and then the master fader, and then the amplifier, whatever. But we follow that process from input. Last thing we do is output. So some people say, should I turn my amplifier knob all the way up? Should I turn it halfway? It depends. It depends on what that knob does. And it also depends on all the gain before that. So start at the input, work your way to the output. Last thing I'll say before you have, I'm sure, a question is, where are you listening to this speaker? If it's in your living room, it could just be that you're in such a small space that you're hearing the noise that is normal and inherent. And if you took it into an actual space that speaker's designed to be used in, you wouldn't hear the noise.
So now, when that kind of microphone is going to give us that more of a noticeable noise, but will CD players also have a noise element to them?
Of course, every piece of gear has noise in it. It's just the electronic activity basically inside that device. Every device is going to generate some level of noise. Now, in a CD player, it would be very difficult to turn up the noise and not turn up the signal because they're coming out together. Generally, you don't have any place on a CD player you can adjust that level. But certainly you should adjust, the trim or the gain in your mixer or controller, if you have a CD player, for example, connected, and we'll talk about digital files in a second here, because what we could do is we could have that CD player turned way down on the gain so that my music and everything is low. And then I push my fader way up, and then I push my master way up. And now I've just amplified the noise that lives inside the mixer because my signal ratio is very low within the mixer. This also occurs. There's digital trim inside some of your programs, Serato, whatever, where you can adjust and trim that file level. And of course, computers and everything have noise floors too. So it's in everything.
And some of the recorded music, I've noticed, some of our kind of 80s dance, or an 80s RAM, the 90s and...
You're really dating yourself, John.
Exactly. But some of the rap that came out in the early 2000s, late 90s, what have you, had a level of distortion in that. Is that something that was put in there, and because of my signal to noise, it's picking that up, or why am I hearing what sounds like distortion coming over the speakers in some of those cases?
Well, now we've really switched topics, honestly. I know it sounds like it's the same, but no, I want to talk about this because it's fun, because, if you think about the way records used to be made and the equipment they were made on, a lot of times it was done in tape. And you had tape noise that existed. And many times these tapes were dubbed and overdubbed and redubbed, and that tape was running through and running through and running through. And they were, using different layers, how many tracks on the tape. I can do 8 tracks at a time, or I can do 4 tracks at a time, and redubs and overdubs. And you had all this gear, analog gear, and things that had the noise in it. The reason that's funny to me, one, it's in those recordings. And then some of these have been remastered, and, algorithms have cleaned them up and so on and so forth. But why that's so funny is we got to this era, particularly moving into the 2000s, where everything was so clean. It became almost sterile. The whole process was digital, and we moved all the noise out, and we were able to reproduce nearly perfect sound. And what we found, what was interesting, is people didn't like it. So now you can go. I have the ability on digital consoles to go in and put noise back in, to go in and synthesize tape noise. And there's some warmth to it. I think maybe, you could say, or just some, I don't know, there's some imperfection that I don't know. Some music producers right now is losing his mind because I'm not using the word he wants me to use. But you get the idea, right? That there's some character that comes along with that. And
Sure.
We've actually started to put it back in artificially, or artists are going back and wanting to record on older desks and things. A little bit of both, but you probably are hearing it, is my point. It probably is there.
That's interesting. I had not, didn't think that people would, want that back. I mean, obviously we've heard the vinyl world. I mean, that's what my boys and I've gotten into ourselves, is some of our old favorites on vinyl. But people wanting to have some of that the flaws of the tape type of thing is astounding, I guess, to me.
Yeah, and I think about when I mix live shows, I think it should be unapologetically flawed. I mean, maybe flawed isn't the word.
Yeah.
But I think it should be unapologetically live. It should be, of course I want the artist to sound good and I want the audience to have a great experience, but I think part of that is just the unique imperfection that comes with every live performance. It's different every time, right? So I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, I don't know. It's and there's a lot of this gets into a high level of subjectivity. What do you want it to sound like? Tone, this and that. Artists can be very particular. My youngest was actually just asking me a question about distortion. Made me very proud. I don't think they thought I was going to go the direction I did with it, because I think it was just an argument they were having with a class member over some school project. But I was like, I don't know. I kind of like that gritty tone of that overdrive, there. And it was like, how much distortion is the right amount of distortion? Well, who's to say? The artist is who to say, right? And that's where the collaboration of an artist and a producer, whatever, get together and decide what that sound should be. But what we're seeing, if you go back and look at old masters and remasters, is something else that's happening. And this is more of a crest factor discussion, a different show entirely. But we're taking the dynamic range out of music. It's a lot more compressed. So it sounds a lot louder. it's a lot more energy over a period of time because we're taking some of that dynamic range out. So it's really interesting to go back and listen to some of these remasters and to listen to new ones. And, I've been listening to a lot of late 80s, early 90s stuff and really kind of contemplating about how they laid that tape down, how they got to that final mix. So anyway, Jim Cerrone was picking on me from I think it was his college radio days or whatever, but he was, maybe he was on commercial radio at the time, but I had the Communication by Spandau Ballet stuck in my head the other day. And I'm like, I don't know where it came from, probably because I listened to all this old crap, but it's not crap. He's like, man, that's a deep cut. Yeah. Well, how about Dear Prudence by Susie and the Banshees? There's another deep cut for you. I don't know. Like you can tell where my brain's at these days.
Funny. Well, yeah, we'll wrap things up tonight. Thank you, Ben, for putting some great information together for us. Those of you out there watching, we're going to be having our chill room opened up here in a little bit, djntv.com/chill. You can bounce out there and check things out. The website link, Robin shared it in the chat. Thanks, Robin, for that. And of course, it's in the description of this video, so you guys can go out there and check that out. And I put the chill room link in there, just making sure that there weren't any questions. Craig's there, Dance, Deb's there. Thank you guys for being with us tonight. So yeah, next week I think we've got. Next week we'll be. Did you have something coming up on a Tuesday here in the next couple of weeks?
Let me check the old calendar here.
Yeah,
let's see. The 8th, I am available. 15th, I am on the road and questionably available. Might be doing a remote.
Maybe because I think we talked to you are going to be on the road again here in a couple of weeks. So we'll plan next Tuesday night with Ben. So if you guys have got a question you'd like us to dig into on a Tuesday night show, just send that over. Either get it to Ben or get it to myself, and we will get that in the hopper and get it on the show. So Ben, you have a great night, guys. Check out the chill room here in a little bit, and we'll catch you next week. Good night, everybody.